Hi, Anna Karen. Let's take a look at your new set of essays today. We've got the pie chart with the German school subjects. Let's see what you wrote. The pie chart illustrates the distribution of the popularity of school subjects in Germany in 2017. Overall, the popularity is divided among 7 subjects. The most popular, famous and popular are not synonyms, so avoid using them as such. So the most popular subjects, or you could have said the most preferred, that also would have been okay. So the most preferred subjects were history and physical education with broadly similar proportions S, whereas the least popular was information technologies. Fine. In second and third, well, now look what you did here. You talked about the first and second most popular subject in your overview. And then here you in your detail paragraph, you went straight to the next most popular. This is something I want you to avoid doing. Just because you mentioned something in your overview, it doesn't mean that you're done with it. Because remember what your overview is. It's just like it's like an how can I say this? It's like just a summary of the main trend, the most obvious thing you see, but it doesn't include any details about that. So you really want to then talk about it again, but in further detail. So rather than talking about second and third place, I would have started talking here about physical education. Okay, so while this was fine, you needed to mention it again, but this time with data. So I would have started off saying that the most popular subject among German students was PE with 22.9%. It was followed very closely by history with 0.5% less. These two made up approximately 45% of the total popularity of German school subjects. Okay? So what am I doing? I'm just extending it so you get a sense that just those 2 subjects alone made up around 50% of the popularity. Okay? Then you could have gone into this. Now it's not second and third place, but it's actually third and fourth because you've already talked about the first and second. So in third and fourth place of popularity were, get rid of found. It's grammatically wrong. Were mathematics and physics with 19.5 and 18.1 respectively. All right, could you have said anything else here about that? Okay, could you have said that the top 4% made up over 80% of the popularity? You could have, right? So that's the kind of thing you need to do here to extend an answer like this where you really have very little data to work with. You only have 7 pieces. So you're going to have to extend it to really make these numbers, these figures seem relevant and to develop them a little. Okay, so then here I would have then gone into a new paragraph to talk about those last 3. So I would have talked about the first through the 4th most popular in one paragraph, and then I would have gone into another paragraph to talk about those last 3. So again, I would introduce them in a similar way. I would say that the 3 least popular subjects in Germany each had under 10% popularity each. Specifically, the last places were occupied by biology with 7.1%, followed closely by geography with 6.4%, and finally IT, this is awkward, which halved the latter portion. No. So, okay, and then I would have stopped here. I would have said the least popular subject, comma, IT. So really emphasize that it's the least popular. Had only 3.7% popularity, which was approximately half that of geography, the second least popular. Another thing that you might want to say is that the least popular subject was 7 times less popular than the most popular. So that's another kind of connection you could have made here. Okay. All right, so easily, it can be seen that the majority of the popularity was represented by 4 subjects. The sum of percentages of them was over 3/4 good, with 83.9%. Good, good, good. That's what you want to do. Good. In contrast, the minority was represented by 3 subjects with a distribution of 17.1. Minority? 17.1? Yeah, that seems accurate. Okay, fine. Well, it's 17.2, maybe? I think so. All right. So yeah, I like that. Now, you don't always need to have a conclusion in a task one. Here it worked for you, although you could have avoided a conclusion and then just sort of had this information peppered throughout the response, which is kind of what I suggested earlier. But you did include it, so I was happy about that. Now, keep in mind that it is still considered rather short. It's 147 words as far as I can tell. Let me just double check that. Oh, wow. It's 128 words. So it is really short, which just means that you really do absolutely have to extend your answer. You may or may not have heard that IELTS examiners no longer do a word count to to make sure that you've written 150 words. They don't do that anymore. But keep in mind that 150 words is a recommendation, nonetheless, for how much you should be writing to make sure that you're developing your answer adequately. Okay, so at 128 words, this is really rather short. You did want to extend it, much in the way that I suggested earlier. Okay, so other than that, it was fine. So I want to go on to your task 2. All right, let's take a look at your task 2 now, which is about online communication at the workplace. Here's what you wrote. Communication has always been an essential part of human life, which has been developed and adapted through generations according to their necessities. That is a reason that, within the last couple of years, experts have debated about the tendency of virtual or face-to-face meetings, particularly in many private companies and governmental offices. This essay will analyze the benefits and drawbacks of this issue, using examples from Cambridge University and psychologists to demonstrate points and prove arguments. All right, let's talk about this. Grammatically, you were fine, for the most part. I thought this was a little strange. Look, communication has always been an essential part of human life, which has been developed. So what does this which refer to? I think you wanted it to refer to communication, but for someone reading it, it sounds like it's referring to human life. So it's as if human life has been developed and adapted. And then according to whose necessities? This there is unclear. So it read okay, but grammatically it doesn't really make sense, okay? If you ask me, I would have gotten rid of this first sentence, and then I would have started essentially with something like this. Within the last couple of years, experts have debated about the tendency, particularly in private offices, towards virtual meetings instead of face-to-face meetings. Now, then you told me this essay will analyze the benefits and drawbacks. But what you didn't do is you didn't answer the question, Anna Karen. It asks you, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? And as this is your third set of essays, I think that at this point we have talked about how important it is to answer the question or the command, whatever they give you, to answer it in your introduction. It's important because without that, it's very difficult to get a task 7. A band 7, forgive me. It's very difficult to get a band 7 because how are you going to make your position clear throughout the essay if it's not clear from the beginning? Okay, so it's not very difficult to do this. You simply have to say, I believe that there are more disadvantages to this trend than advantages, and this essay will analyze the benefits and drawbacks using examples, etc., etc., etc. So it's not really something difficult to kind of throw in there, but it is important because the examiner then knows where you stand on this, and so it kind of clears the path for understanding of the rest of your essay. Okay? Let's take a look at your body paragraphs. On the one hand, there is ample evidence of the increment, that's the wrong word, of virtual meetings over face-to-face, which results in some benefits for the productivity of the companies, such as avoid distractions and reduce time consuming. Okay, let's fix some of the grammar here and some of the vocabulary. on the one hand, there is ample evidence of the increase of virtual meetings over face-to-face, increase of virtual meetings over face-to-face communication, which results in some benefits to the productivity of companies, such as avoiding distractions and reducing time consumption. Okay. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, employees would not waste time before and after the meeting while they are walking to the meeting room or even commuting to different premises where the meeting will be held. Secondly, the amount of time invested within online meetings is lower than face-to-face gatherings because the employees focus on agenda topics rather than lose the purpose. For example, Cambridge University conducted research that indicated that meetings in person required 37% more time than remote ones. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that one of the biggest resources for productivity is invested in a better way through virtual meetings. Okay. Let's move on. That's fine so far. Let's move on. On the other hand, although remote gatherings in workplaces could improve productivity, some drawbacks must be analyzed, such as the internet. Here you need to be careful with your grammar. Such as poor internet connection or lack of familiarity among participants. Okay, your grammar is a little off here. You needed a noun or a noun phrase in this case. One of the most important is a lack of sense of community due to the lack. All right, careful with using too much lack. So one of the most important is a lack of sense of community due to less social interaction among colleagues. That is largely because it is not the same to see each other over a screen than face to face. It is not possible to have contact, shake hands, receive a hug, and beyond that, it becomes difficult to develop a camaraderie that is helpful for teamwork. To illustrate that, psychologists have shown a study in which over the majority of the employees accepted that if they attend online meetings, they do not feel a sense of community constantly, they would prefer traditional meetings. Or I didn't understand that. In which over the majority, I think I understand what you're trying to say. Let's see. Let me try it one more time, okay? To illustrate that, psychologists have shown a study, psychologists have reported that the majority of employees stated that if they attend online meetings, they do not feel a sense of community. Consequently, they would prefer traditional meetings. All right, you wrote consequently, so be careful. As a result, employers might be facing issues about teamwork. However, some professionals have suggested that different ways are being, ing here, developed, ed, to tackle this issue. Thus, it is proved that the lack of interaction might cause more challenges. In conclusion, from the arguments and examples given, I advocate for virtual meetings instead of in person. Without a doubt, increasing productivity entails a higher revenue, which is crucial, whereas teamwork can be enhanced through different dynamics as well as, that's a little awkward, maybe additionally, technological problems can be solved. However, there are further impacts to be analyzed so that companies and government agencies could decide what is better for each of them. It is predicted that virtual meetings and remote work will will increase, essentially, in the next decade, considering the tools that technology is providing. Okay. I want to read through your paragraphs again to see how appropriately this was developed, so just give me a minute to do that. All right, so I checked the way you developed your paragraphs. I thought you did fine. The only thing that maybe I wanted that you didn't do is here. You mentioned the negatives, and you mentioned something about the internet connection failing, but you never actually talked about it. You just threw it out there in the beginning of your paragraph, and then you never talked about it again. Instead, what you talked about is you spent the whole paragraph talking about lack of social interaction, lack of community, lack of camaraderie, And that's okay, but then I don't really understand why you included this thing about poor internet. Okay? I'm wondering if it would have been more effective to just have left that out. But on the whole, I thought you did okay with that. So yes, as far as the task achievement is concerned, um, you dealt with it in an appropriate way. So I was fine with it. So those little things that we talked about elsewhere, little grammatical things, those are the things that I want you to be aware of, okay? Also, um, don't forget this thing here where they tell you really clearly what they want you to answer. Make sure you answer it in your introduction. This is important if you're aiming for 7 and higher. Okay, so go ahead, correct these, return them back to us, and let's see your next set. Okay, good luck to you.